the book of Enoch, and the book that's called The Assumption of Moses. Okay, so both of these Jude references in a slight way, but in a way that people that knew these books would still, they would know what the connection was. So then we've got 25 verses here in this. So the letter itself, the author and the readers, let's look at that for a moment. Jude and James were two of the four brothers of Jesus. So they were really half brothers. Okay? So James and Jude. So Jude was one of the half brothers. Despite that, he only speaks of himself as a servant of Jesus, who is now his master. So Jude doesn't say, let's speak himself up. Jude just calls himself a servant. He was also humble enough to mention his well-known brother James, because we know that James became a leader of the Christian church in Jerusalem. Jude puts ideas out in threes. So to make his point, he'll kind of say three things, or three comparisons. He says that God calls people to serve him in the same way as he called the people, the children of Israel, in Isaiah 42 verse 6. Okay, so Jesus is calling us today in the same way that these people were called to serve him. To serve Jesus is a responsibility, and it is also an honour. God's love protects them and gives them strength every day. If we stay in Christ, then his love, his protection will build us up and direct us every single day. Okay? Life will throw us some curveballs, will throw us some challenges, but we can overcome in the name of Jesus. Jude prays for three gifts for his readers. He prays for God's mercy, for God's inner peace. So, inner peace, what is inner peace? Well, when we have inner peace, God has forgiveness, and we know that we've got inner peace because God has forgiveness, and he'll help us to obey him. If we have a passion, a heartfelt desire to obey Christ, he'll help us to obey him. And Jesus always keeps his promises. There's nothing that's promised that is reneged upon. And finally, God's love. So they want to show love to other people, so do we. We want to let people see the love of Christ. You can't earn love, okay, in that sense. They're free gifts. God puts love in our hearts for other people. So people that we physically just wouldn't be able to or wouldn't want to love, Jesus helps us and enables us to be able to reach them and love them. So all his friends that he's writing to all have sharing God's love and have faith. And Jude is praising this. We as Christians have responsibility to keep faith without change. So we've got to have unshakable faith. And at the same time, we have to watch out for false doctrines that might try to draw us away from Christ. You see, wicked men are false teachers. False teachers make an excuse to behave in any way they like. They were like some Christians that Paul described in Romans 6 verse 1. Okay, so people who pretend or make themselves out to be Christians, very often they want to do things their way and not God's way. these people say that God loves to forgive. So wicked behaviour makes it possible for God to show more of His grace. Right? So we absolutely know that God forgives. And we know if we mess up slightly that we have an advocate with Jesus. We can go to the altar and have that cleansed. Right? But that gives us no license to go and say, well, we'll just sin all the more so that His grace can abound more. You know? So that's not what that's a misquotation of scripture that they're taking there. So they're basically saying we can go and do what we want to do, and every so often we'll just say, "Forgive us, Lord," and ding, they're forgiven. That doesn't. There's no compulsion in that. There's no commitment in that. So they also said that the human body is evil, so it doesn't matter how you use it. Right? So they denied Jesus by the wicked words and the way they lived. So they're saying they can use their body whatever way you want, can go and enjoy do all manner of sin, and it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. The Bible clearly tells us that it matters. They denied that Jesus had a real human body. So they had an issue with Jesus Christ being all man and all God. And we know that the scripture tells us that He was all man and all God. But Jesus had a human body. He felt pain, He felt hunger, He felt thirst, He felt like tired, He felt He needed rest. All of these things that you and I feel. Right? So they can't say that Jesus never ever had a human body. They said that Jesus was not one with God. That's a contradiction to the oneness message, right? Because the oneness says that tells us that Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God the Father are one. You know, the Lord our God is one God, right? And we know that. We've had the revelation of that by these people of false teaching, where we're proclaiming like things against that. They claim to have special knowledge of the way to God. How many groups nowadays say, "Oh, there's many ways to God. There's many ways. You don't need to go to a particular church. You don't need to even be of a particular faith. Oh, there's many ways to God." No, there isn't many ways to God. There's only one way. You know, but they taught these things as well. So these people that were advocating all these false things, there is punishment because there's always a consequence for people's actions. So undoubtedly they would get punished, but how many lives would they try to wreck along the way? How many lives would be influenced in a wrong way by their words and their attitudes? So Old Testament examples of God's judgment. So in verse 5, the children of Israel were rescued from Egypt, God using Moses. But they didn't trust God enough to enter the promised land. There's only 2 of them from the original set who actually entered into the promised land. So even Moses himself didn't get into the promised land. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years aimlessly because they refused to go across in the first instance. You know, they could have went through relatively soon after they left Egypt. They could have, but they didn't. They went into the wilderness, into the desert, and God said, well, okay, you're going to be there until basically your whole generation has gone. Everybody that's supposed to be has gone. They died in the desert. Because of their pride, some angels refused to believe God in Revelation 12. If God judges angels, you can be sure that He'll judge mankind as well. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were centre for all manner of wicked behaviour. 2 angels visited Lot and told him to get out, told him to get his family and get out, because God's judgment was going to come on that place. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone. These false teachers that Jude's talking about had no thought or care really for their own fate. Right? They were living for today, as in they were expounding all their stuff. They didn't care what would happen to them tomorrow or whatever kind of judgment might come upon them. Like Sodom, they continued on in their evil practices and just completely disregarded any warnings or intimations to get them to change. They insult God's angels. Angels, as we know, bring a message. So, in verse 9, this is where Jude refers to the Assumption of Moses. The book's not in the Old Testament, but Jude's readers would have known the story. They think that anything that's not outside, they think that anything that's outside their own experience has no use or worth. They do not realise where their attitudes and their actions are leading. These false teachers, their fate is as sure as it ever was when God judged people. 3 more examples from the Old Testament. Verse 11, Cain was the first person to kill anybody, the first murderer in the Bible. False teachers are trying to kill the faith of the people. So people that are just new in faith, these false teachers come along, give them something that absolutely messes their mind, and they end up turning away from that faith that they originally grasped. So people who decide not to trust and obey God are like Cain. The same with Balaam. Balaam, the king of Moab, tried to get Balaam to curse the Israelites. His greed was so strong. He tried to do it, but you know that the story says that God actually caused him to bless the Israelites and not curse them. He couldn't help but bless them, but his intention was to curse them. Korah was proud and jealous, and Korah thought he had it all together. He thought it was all together. He also encouraged a lot of other people to oppose Moses, and they all died when the ground opened up and swallowed them. False teachers must expect God to punish them. They must expect God to punish them eventually. God's already decided upon the fate of a lot of these people. And then there's a number of pictures to illustrate the behaviours of some of these men. Rocks are dangerous, they can sink ships. These people's behaviours were a great danger to the love mules that they got involved with. They thought only of themselves, felt no responsibility for other people. Another picture, clouds promise rain, but if they produce none, they've got no value. These men did nothing to help other Christians to learn about Jesus or to learn about the truth. Trees that produce no fruit and are useless, Jesus said it himself, are only good to be cut down and thrown in the fire. These men that were there were without roots, so they didn't put down any proper roots. They went on, it goes on to talk about waves in the sea. Waves can be wild and dangerous. The wild are like this, the sea that never rests. They're always digging things up. They're always being controversial. These men never stopped their wicked actions. They're like the dirty rubbish that is left on a shore when there's been a storm and the sea has been in and went out and left a whole lot of debris. And then wandering stars, this is where the book of Enoch comes in. Enoch gave a warning. So Enoch walked with God, but he lived a holy life close to God. He did not die, he was taken by God straight to heaven. Although he lived so long, so long ago, he actually said that God would come and judge people for their actions. Okay? And the rest of the book of Jude, we're closing just now, is really just about that, these people getting dealt with, but also Jude's talk about watch out for people that are weak and help them, have compassion on them. Watch out for people that have been touched by some of this false doctrine and they're starting to waver, they're starting to go off track. Try and help them to come back on track again, get back into proper fellowship. And of course there'll be some that will completely refuse to turn back. You know? So the book of Jude is short, but it's very direct and very controversial as well. Okay? So we'll close on that, and you have your class test next month. I won't be around here to administer it, but your class papers will be here, and someone will be on hand just to help if you've got any questions. But I need to be at another appointment next month. So it's been a pleasure, as I say, this is the last teaching month. It's been a pleasure teaching you, particularly since you guys are third years, right? Okay. Whoever's doing credit in here, graduation's only 6 weeks away.
3 years.
Right.
You're doing as well.
So we look forward to if we can see you in person at graduation, that'd be brilliant. If we can't, then we'll be thinking of you and praying for you and rejoicing with you that you've stayed the course and you've come through three years and you've accomplished what God has set forth for you to do. Okay, so God bless all of you real good. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we'll see you soon. If you've got any questions at all, I think somehow or other, all of you have got means to get in touch with me, okay? So, and we'll take it from there. We'll speak to Brother Kelly about the email situation, Sister Maria, okay? Right, take care. God bless you all.
Thank you for teaching us, Charlie.
You're most welcome.